I will not torment you with expectations and will immediately start telling you about the new finds of archaeologists that will surprise you. Hi friend, you're on the KirTop channel. Ancient clay tablet. On it was found a cuneiform text that scientists cannot decipher. A tablet with cuneiform text was found on a farm in Kazakhstan province during agricultural work. Researchers believe that it dates back to the existence of the ancient state of Elam, about 2700–539 BC. The ancient state of Elam occupied an area in the southwest of Iran, where the modern provinces of Elam and Kazakhstan are now located. The language widespread on the territory of the ancient state has not been fully deciphered by researchers. Scientists know only some of its grammatical features. $1 200 ruby and diamond ring. A resident of Great Britain, whose name has not been released, some time ago acquired a pretty ring from a local thrift store. As the woman said, it cost her about $1.50. Then she thought it was beautiful jewelry with multicolored glass inserts, but still decided to show it to the experts of the Antiques Roadshow. And it was the right decision. Expert John Benjamin carefully studied the jewelry and greatly surprised the owner with his verdict. It turned out that the ring was made between 1790–1800 in India, and what the woman initially considered to be multicolored glass turned out to be rubies and a large spotted diamond. As a result, after the appraisal, the value of the ring increased markedly. According to the expert, this piece of jewelry can cost at least $2,500. Plundered burial well. Archaeologists excavating in the El Halva area have discovered a cemetery located east of the tomb of Prince Vaiji and dating back to the Middle Kingdom. The cemetery dates back to the era of Amenemhat III, 1842–1799 BC. On its territory is the tomb of the Prince Vaiji, ruler of Fayum in the Middle Kingdom, as well as the tomb of his mother, Nebat Mu. There are 3 burial chambers in the wall, in which archaeologists have found the upper part of the statue, 40 centimeters high, made of sandstone. The statue depicts a seated man with his hand on his chest. Also, archaeologists found several earthen vessels and 3 canopic vessels, but some of them were broken. Ashmavi noted that the chambers were looted in antiquity and reused for burial in later eras. The tomb of Prince Vaiji, carved into the rock, was also destroyed. In the tomb, they found a limestone statue on which the name of the prince was written, part of a wooden coffin, and an earthen vessel. The statue is now kept in the Calm Ocean Museum in Fayum. The ceiling of the tomb was completely destroyed, possibly due to a strong earthquake that occurred in antiquity, or the heavy weight of the roofing stones. The Italian mission has built a new ceiling to protect the grave inscriptions. Tashtyk burial doll. Tashtyk culture is a material complex that tells us about the life of people who lived in the 3rd–4th centuries AD on the territory of modern Caucasia. In this corner of Siberia, divided by the Russians in Chinese, in the first third of the 18th century, interesting funeral traditions have reigned since ancient times. To Europeans, they will seem rather strange. Archaeologists have discovered the remains of an adult male from the 3rd–4th centuries AD inside a Tashtyk burial doll. A burial doll was discovered on the territory of Caucasia in 1969. It is a leather case that contains the remains of a person after cremation. The doll was well preserved, thanks to which scientists were able to thoroughly examine it. The deceased was a man between the ages of 25 and 40. Also, scientists were able to establish that the man was cremated at a temperature of 700–800 degrees Celsius. The creation of the doll is associated with special burial rituals of the Tashtyk culture. A 153 centimeters long doll was found in a burial ground right under the woman's body. The leather doll was stuffed with grass, and inside it was a leather bag with bones burned at the stake. Ancient city of Merv. Unfortunately, military conflicts of the past have become the main reason for the destruction of unique architectural monuments and even entire cities. Not all conquerors were barbaric. However, most of them were interested in banal profit, and they did not give a damn about the culture of the captured people, and even more so their homes. A similar fate befell the thriving city of Merv in the 13th century, which at that time was considered one of the richest and most populated megacities on the planet. The vast Karakum Desert has spread its scent on the territory of Turkmenistan. A long time ago, thousands of caravans passed here along the route of the Great Silk Road. Only a few daredevils dared to cross the hot desert. There would be even fewer of them if there was no paradise in the middle of the dead zone, the city of Merv. In the Middle Ages, it was considered one of the most important strongholds of Islam and the largest trade center with a population, according to various estimates, from 800,000 to 1.5 million people. Now there is no trace of the former greatness of the ancient metropolis. Only a huge field of ruins, painfully similar to the lunar landscape, reminds of it. However, in this sad place, the Murgab River still flows, which made possible the emergence of an oasis in the middle of lifeless deserts. The very first civilization, Margash, settled in these places 4,000 years ago. Archaeologists have found the palace of its ruler, a temple, and several tombs. In addition, irrigation systems, dams, and even ceramic water pipes were widely used in the settlement. Merv was completely built of clay, and its outer walls surrounded an area of 8 kilometers square. The area of all excavated buildings in the center of and suburban settlements covers more than 70 kilometers square. In the 50s of the last century, the expedition discovered in the sands the oldest citadel, built by someone back in the 6th century BC. It was surrounded by a wall much later, and the height of this wall even now reaches 30 meters. Historians are inclined to believe that the fortification was erected by Alexander the Great himself, who passed with an army to India in these places. This theory is supported by the fact that for some time the settlement bore the proud name of Alexandria. On a cold morning in February 1221, one of the hordes of Genghis Khan unexpectedly appeared at the city gates. The formidable army was led by his son Talay. Despite the fact that the inhabitants surrendered without a fight, Merv was completely sacked and razed to the ground. All dams and canals were destroyed. The nomads captured 400 artisans and about 1,000 specially selected teenagers. This perhaps is all that remains of the once great people. The oldest statuettes of Buddha. Specialists from the Institute of Archaeology of Shaanxi Province spoke about the results of excavations in the northwest China. The work was carried out from June 2020 to November 2021, and during this time, 3,648 ancient tombs were discovered here. They belong to a vast historical period, from the Eastern Han Empire to the Tang Empire. Most of them were burial places of dignitaries and members of ruling families. More than 16,000 artifacts were found in the cemetery, including 2 statues of Buddha made of an alloy of copper, tin, and lead in the style of ancient Gangara. One of them is a 10-centimeter image of Buddha Shakyamuni. The second figurine, 15.5 centimeters high, is the 5 Dani Buddhas. They were in the family tomb M3015 and are dated to 158 AD. This means that Buddhism came to China earlier than it was thought. According to the generally accepted theory, this religion appeared here in 304-438 when the 16 Bavarian states were formed after the collapse of North China. The mystery of the man in boots. Deep in the mud of the Thames, face down and in high leather boots, the remains of this man lay for several centuries. At the time of his death, which occurred more than 500 years ago, he was no more than 35 years old. And now archaeologists are trying to solve the riddle. What happened to him? This male skeleton was discovered during construction work at the site of the Chambers Wharf shipyard on the Thames in London Bermondsey area. The Thames Tideway Tunnel is under construction there, which should stop the discharge of effluents directly into the Thames. A study of the boots by specialists showed that these boots were made at the end of the 15th or at the very beginning of the 16th century. Leather was an expensive material at the time, so it tended to be used repeatedly. Therefore, scientists consider it almost unbelievable that this man could be buried with such a high-value accessory. These boots, when unfolded, reached the wearer's thighs. The length of these shoes was perfect for stepping into the river and navigating the sticky mud of the Thames. Noteworthy is the very good workmanship, which guaranteed a long service life of these special shoes. The boots were reinforced with an additional sole and were insulated from the inside with an unknown material. This could have been done both to keep the wearer from freezing and to maintain the shape of the shoe. All this gives the researchers a reason to assume that this person was not buried, and the river was the place where he earned his living. This could have been the cause of his death. It is not uncommon for archaeologists to find graves on the banks of the river, but the position of the found man cannot be called normal in any way. The deceased was lying face down, one hand was over his head, the other was thrown to the side. The pose indicates that the person fell from a height or drowned and then was covered with a layer of silt. On his bones, there are traces of strong physical exertion, which, as can be assumed, were the result of hard work. The most striking evidence of his life was the deep grooves in his teeth. They were caused by repetitive actions, such as the constant pinching of the rope in the teeth, typical footprints in the work of a fisherman. Unique sword of the Vikings. British archaeologists have described a unique Viking heavy sword found in the Orkney Islands. This is the second discovery of such a weapon in the history of science. The Orkney Islands are located in the northeast of Scotland. There was a harsh climate and the wind never stops. The Orkney Islands were conquered by the Vikings at the end of the first millennium. In 2015, archaeologists from the British organization AOC Archaeology discovered a unique burial on the island of Papa Westray. It is 1,200 years old. Arrows, a bronze buckle, and a heavy sword were found in the burial. Viking blades are poorly preserved, about 30 of them were found. About half of them were found in Norway, but there were also finds in Ireland, Slovakia, Poland, and Russia. In order not to damage the unique find, it was removed along with the soil, and the study has been going on for 7 years. The find is X-rayed and gradually freed from the ground. The first thing that struck the scientists was the unusual position of the sword. Most often, the blades were placed in the barrel next to the body with the edge to the feet, but in this case, the sword was lying directly on the body with to the chin. Mineralized organic matter was found on the surface of the sword, probably a scabbard. The only heavy sword so far has been found as early as the 1830s. Now we have found the second one. The relic was heavily rusted, but in X-rays, scientists saw that the sword guard was distinguished by the exquisite patterns that are difficult to see due to rust. Oldest ink pen. The oldest fountain pen ever found in Ireland was found at Cackconnell, a dry stone medieval ring fort in Barron, County Clare. The shaft is made of hollow bird bone and the feather itself is made of bronze. The pen dates back to the 11th century, that is, a time when literacy was rare and even among the literate elite, ordinary nibs were a more common tool. The handle was found in an 11th century layer and consisted of a hollow bone cylinder with a copper alloy tip inserted into one end. The layer also contained other high-status artifacts, including an ornamented gold stripe. Scientists call this discovery sensational, since ink pens of an earlier age were not found in Ireland. Scholars also know that most of the evidence for early literacy in Ireland has to do with the church, not secular society. The experts explained that such a pen was ideal for delicate work, perhaps for drawing fine lines. Although church scribes copied and created all sorts of church texts, it is likely that a secular scribe could also use such a pen to record family origins or trade exchanges. Super eye among the ancient inhabitants of the earth. Ancient creatures that lived on Earth long before our appearance had many unique characteristics. Scientists around the world have been trying to figure out which ones for many years. For example, an international group of scientists announced their fresh discovery. They were able to discover in the trilobites of the Phacopina suborder of the Devonian period an eye system that is unique in the animal world. As it turned out, these extinct creatures that lived on our planet about 390 million years ago had hyperfaceted eyes consisting of 200 lenses. Each of them was divided into 6 facets, and all this formed a super eye. According to experts, this feature was an evolutionary adaptation to life in low light conditions. With this unusual design, the ancient inhabitants of the Earth could see in pitch darkness, since their super eye was much more sensitive to light than the ordinary eye. Ship in the desert. Among the endless Atlantic expanses, there is a special place where warm air masses collide with the current and form dense fogs. Poor visibility, strong currents, and gusty winds pose a significant danger to ships. In the past, many schooners did not cope with such difficulties, as a result of which they sank, and over time they were washed ashore. A considerable number of such ships have managed to accumulate on the coast of Namibia. Now a national park called Skeleton Coast is organized here. The numerous remains of of ships in the disaster covered the sandy area. Over the decades, these structures have corroded but have not lost their showiness. On the contrary, their appearance has become more mysterious. Every year, this place is gaining more and more popularity. Speaking of this place, it is impossible not to mention the Portuguese ship Bom Jesus, which went missing around 1533. For hundreds of years, this exhibit of the past was hiding from people not far from the very graveyard of ships in Namibia, in a man-made lagoon which became a salt reservoir under a large layer of sand. What's so special about it? The fact is that all this time an incredible amount of old coins and other valuables from the past were kept in its holds. When the treasures were discovered, they were valued at over $13 million. The treasure was found by chance by diamond mining experts who drained the reservoir. Currently, this ship is considered the oldest and most valuable of all those found earlier. It is no less amazing that all the things in it are perfectly preserved despite the fact that more than 500 years have passed. The wrecked old Portuguese ship looked something like this when it set off on its long journey. Rare 11th century gold earring. The National Museum in Copenhagen announced that an extremely rare gold earring was discovered in Denmark during a metal detector search, which experts attributed to the 11th century. The crescent-shaped piece of jewelry is framed with a gold plate and decorated with small gold balls and gold ribbons. The earring is crafted from cloisonné enamel in shades of purple, green, and blue, separated by golden threads, creating a stylized design of two birds on either side of the Tree of Life. Experts at the National Museum were somewhat taken by how the gold earring ended up where it was recently dug. The 1,000-year-old earring is most likely from the Middle East, so it represents the first discovery of such an object in Scandinavia. Museum researchers also said that the 1,000-year-old rare artifact could be an archaeological breakthrough in the understanding of the Vikings and the Middle East. It is noted that a gold earring of this type is very rare, since only 12 such artifacts are known around the world. Presumably, the earring was originally from Byzantine, or possibly Egypt, and it was probably a gift from the emperor to a Viking leader. There was also speculation that the earring was donated to a Viking who served as the emperor's personal bodyguard. In addition, experts explained that despite the fact that the Vikings massively brought home gold and silver coins, as well as other treasures from coastal villages, cities, and monasteries, it is very rare to find jewelry among their loot. The earring was in perfect condition with no visible signs of wear. This confirms the version that Middle Eastern jewelry was one of the most valuable treasures of the Vikings, and that the Viking Age elite who owned these items did not dare to wear them, possibly fearing their loss. Rate the video with a thumb up and subscribe to the channel, and the best thing would be if you left a kind comment under the video. Thanks for your views, bye everyone!